This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now on this Remembrance Day. We'll get to some ceremonies across the province, but first we begin with a weekend tragedy in Torbay. A man was killed Saturday night after being electrocuted by a downed power line. Officers arrived at Burns Lane shortly before 9 o'clock, where a man was declared dead at the scene. Upon arrival, the RNC reported a fire and a live power line emitting flames. 2 women were also injured in the incident and were taken to hospital. High winds were reported in that area Saturday night, which is believed to have been a factor. Well, high winds also delayed flights and ferries over the weekend. Marine Atlantic canceled crossings between Port aux Basques and North Sydney on Saturday, with the southwest coast seeing rain and flurries as well. Both the Highlanders and the Alasawinu were tied up, and some incoming flights at St. John's International Airport were canceled. Well, young musicians at St. Bon's School in St. John's have been learning the 801, composed by Michael Snellgrove. The song was played at this year's Remembrance Day ceremony to honor the sacrifice of many members of the Newfoundland Regiment, some of whom attended that same school. On the Go producer Francesca Swan dropped by for a rehearsal.
So I'm going to just trumpets and those 2 flute players, okay? Ready?
We're hearing the St. Bon's Wind Ensemble perform your piece, the 801, Beaumont Hamel. What's it all about?
Well, it's about an infamous day in the Royal Newfoundland Regiment's history. 20 years ago, CBC asked me to write a piece for the winning band of the CBC band competition, and it was St. Bonaventure's.
It's called the 801 to represent the 801 Newfoundland soldiers that fought in the Battle of Beaumont Hamel, some of which were students from our own school.
It's actually a really difficult piece, maybe even the most difficult piece I have ever played at St. Bon's.
I think music is a very broad art form, and I think it's incredible to be able to share such a amazing and prolific moment in history.
The school is old and it has so much history and lots of creaks in the stairway, but our students climb those stairs every day and walk through those hallways and sit in those classrooms, and these soldiers did the same. And I think it has a lot of meaning for our students to know that because of the sacrifices of our alumni and many others, they have the freedoms that they have today.
Well, there was a strong spirit of remembrance on display in St. John's this morning, and this year's ceremony was even more meaningful. And that's because the War Memorial is now more than just granite and bronze. It's also a cemetery. Here Now's Terry Roberts has that story.
Barely enough wind to catch the flags. Comfortable temperatures. A refurbished, century-old Newfoundland National War Memorial, glowing brightly in the morning sun. And this, the new tomb of the unknown soldier, containing the repatriated remains of a Royal Newfoundland Regiment soldier killed in northern France during the First World War, just the second of its kind in Canada. It's quickly become a powerful symbol in a land where more than 800 of those who died in the First World War have no known grave.
Now people are coming to pay their respects to our fallen, which never happened before.
And this was the result. A very large crowd, a mood of respect and reverence. Many veterans.
I've always respect the people that served. I've served with so many good people, and this is just, for me, is to give back, like to be here and show my support.
Including Indigenous veterans. Bernie Saunders knows the cost of war, but has no regrets about his service.
I'm proud of it. You know, I mean, there's some tough times in it. I mean, there's hard things to deal with sometimes. Like, for all the people that we went through Afghanistan, I knew over 15 faces, right? And they didn't make it home.
And this U.S. Navy veteran was humbled by the large crowd.
The people here are very supportive. I understand the significance of, like, the First World War and the regiment that was lost here, and people are still remembering this. And that's amazing. It really is.
And this moment, Premier Andrew Furey, who served as next of kin for the unknown soldier, touching the tomb after laying a wreath. Not everyone could see the formalities, but that didn't seem to matter to this crowd. It was all about being present, remembering. It was more than enough for this family physician who served 6 years in the military.
Taking care of the families just gave me a real piece of understanding that it's not just the people in uniform that pay. The families themselves pay a big price when their loved one serves, and especially if their loved one is injured.
And this tomb made it extra personal this year. More than a century ago, this unknown soldier answered the call. He made the ultimate sacrifice. Now he's home, embraced, at rest, his duty done.
That is the capstone of the monument that we want to preserve for the future.
For 100 years, this has been hallowed ground. Generations have come here to remember and reflect. Now it's also a gravesite, one that honors the spirit, drive, and gallantry of those who served and sacrificed. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, to the West Coast now, where hundreds turned up for an annual Remembrance Day ceremony at Corner Brook City Hall. Lily Hayden was among those in attendance. She says she feels strongly about keeping the memory of her family's sacrifice alive.
My name's Lily Hayden. My great-grandfather on my mom's side fought in World War II, and then my great-grandfather on my dad's side did peacekeeping missions after the war. I just think it's really important to be able to recognize the people who have served and who are still serving in our military and just remember it because it's an important part of why I can live the way that I do.
They say if you don't remember your history, then you might repeat it. And we don't want any repetitions. I mean, we live in a very precarious world right now. And it's important to remember what it looks like when it's not going right. World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Afghanistan. I mean, those are horrible, horrible things. We want to stop that from happening. And Remembrance Day is one of those days where you can reflect upon that and say, no, I don't want that to happen, and I want to be part of the solution.
Well, in other news, Sharing the Harvest is on a mission to get more locally sourced food into the province's food banks. They call it country food, items that are hunted, harvested, and foraged, and they often find a home on the shelves of the Single Parent Association. Barry Fordham is a big believer in the cause.
Yes, so our two products here we have today is moose meat that we harvested on our not-for-profit license for Sharing the Harvest. And as well, I bought some salt fish from a local fisherman in Melrose, Trinity Bay.
Barry's been visiting us for quite some time now. He's always bringing just the most wonderful country food, hunted foods, foraged foods for our clients to enjoy, and it is most certainly a special treat.
I am a hunter. I'm also a conservationist and an environmentalist. I seen the value of this program many years ago, and here we are today, 5 years into our program, Sharing the Harvest NL. I've donated so many different kinds of country food, as we call it, that it's hard to remember it all. 40 seal flippers, 20 braces of rabbits, 11 gallons of Parish berries, 20 plus chickens. To us outdoors people, wild game has a very natural value to us, and we value it so highly. Sometimes, unfortunately, we hoard it, and when we hoard it, it gets left at the bottom of the deep freezer, and then it goes to waste.
A lot of our clients, whether they've grown up in rural Newfoundland or more urban areas, those hunted and foraged foods often hold a lot of nostalgia, a lot of memories of the places they grew up, their childhoods. So all those foods, not just for our clients, but to me, are just so indicative of our childhood and our culture, and being able to, you know, uphold our culture through the food bank and provide people the foods they enjoyed growing up. It's a very special thing.
I'm appealing to all different kinds of people, outdoors people, hunters, anglers, foragers, backyard vegetable growers. If you have any excess food in your deep freezer, why not think about, especially in these food insecurity times, please step up to the plate and make donations.
Well, meanwhile, the Single Parent Association is apologizing for a privacy breach that occurred late last week. It says the names of 10 people receiving support were accidentally released. The executive director says no other personal information, addresses, or sensitive data was released, but she apologizes for any harm caused. Well, in other news, despite appearances, the library at the Arts and Culture Centre in St. John's is open. But as Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton reports, an unsafe staircase and aging infrastructure mean many are turning away before they even get in through the doors.
For the last number of weeks, this staircase has been closed. Now, while it may not seem like a big deal, it actually is. See, the staircase is the main entrance to the A.C. Hunter Public Library here in St. John's, and without it, it's causing some confusion for patrons.
Yep, right there.
Even before Emma Craig could speak to me about the issue, she was stopping to redirect library traffic.
We definitely hear complaints about the fact that the entrance has been closed, people wondering about when it's going to be reopened.
Problems with the stairs arose in September.
We had a bit of issues with the brickwork in the interior area for the entrance to the main library. We were instructed by Transportation Infrastructure to close down the entrance while they conduct an inspection.
So they closed the doors here, and despite the signs, some people looking to use the library just think it's closed.
People thinking that we're not open at all, but meanwhile we're still conducting business as usual with our programs and circulation, and we just want to make sure that our patrons are aware of that.
There's no shortage of entrances to use. Still, staff are seeing fewer people using those entrances since this one has been out of service.
We have been keeping stats since the original closure of the entranceway, and we have seen reports that our circulation numbers are down. We've had confusion when people are trying to attend programs, even when our partners for different programs trying to come into the space. So it has definitely caused a drop in attendance to different aspects of how the library is used.
As for the provincial government, a spokesperson for Transportation and Infrastructure says inspection work is ongoing and a consultant has been hired to come in and figure out a way to fix it. While Craig and staff work to redirect the foot traffic, she hopes people won't check out of taking advantage of what's on offer here.
Currently hosting Sharon Bala as our writer-in-residence, so she's been running programs here at the library, and lots of other exciting adult programs going on. So you're right, full steam ahead, no matter what our entrance looks like.
Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, as Terry mentioned earlier today, a beautiful day in the east anyway for Remembrance Day. But if we take a look at what's going to happen, our weather on the way, headlines over the next couple of days, definitely looking at some snow for parts of Labrador. Rainfall warnings are in place for the east, mainly for the Avalon, expecting a very rainy week. This is just the start. We're actually looking at rain continuing as we head into the beginning of next week. And I will break all of that forecast down for you coming up in a little bit.
There in the Here and Now studio all by yourself. For anyone at home wondering why I'm in the newsroom, we're doing some tweaks to the Here and Now studio, so I'll be up here all week long. Yeah, so how's it going down there, Ashley?
Oh, it's all right down here, pretty lonely, but for it was a lovely day today for most of us in the east. We saw temperatures in the single digits. Let's take a look at what's going on. 6 degrees this afternoon in St. John's. Temperatures along the south coast, a few degrees warmer than that. Anywhere from 7 to 9 degrees is our daytime high. Say up across Labrador, generally looking at those temperatures between 1 and 5 degrees towards the coast. A little cooler though for those of you in the west, and we are looking at that generally continuing. So the chances of some flurries will be in the mix there, or some light snow, I should say, and that will move towards the coast as well. Right now, we've got an area of low pressure. That is what is going to be responsible for our weather over the next couple of days. And, we've got some colder air to the north and some much warmer air in southerly flow to the south. And if I zoom out even more, you can see just where that air is coming from. Some tropical moisture being pretty much directed right towards the province, at least the east, right through the week. So this is going to continue Wednesday, even into Thursday. As you can see, that plume of moisture pretty much directed right towards eastern Newfoundland, and then really most of Atlantic Canada is going to see some of this as we head into Saturday. So pretty much a long rain event expected in the east. And Environment Canada has already issued a rainfall warning, and that is right now just for the Avalon. But take a look at some of the rainfall totals. So this takes us just through Thursday. So the next couple of days, we could be talking for the Avalon anywhere from 60 to as much as 80 millimeters of rain. And then this is going to continue. The rain will continue right through Saturday, even into Monday, where we could see somewhere in excess of 100 millimeters of rain in that time frame for the Avalon. So that is quite a bit of rain. So if you want to clear your storm drains, that's a good idea, because I know with the wind over the last couple of days, most of those leaves are gone. But let's take a look at what's going to happen. So through the overnight, expect that rain to continue, especially east. That will be snow up across Labrador. That will eventually move off. So by tomorrow morning, we'll actually see a little bit of a break in the rain east, even some cloud-free skies for central areas of the province, maybe even the west coast. But you will see some more showers develop later on in the afternoon. Then another round of rain expected to move in for eastern Newfoundland. So things will get some heavy rain expected as we head into the evening hours. Up across Labrador, your weather will generally improve, but you're still going to hang on to the chance of some of those flurries as we head into the afternoon. And there's a look at that rain. Now on the backside of this, we do have some colder air in place, so there is the potential to see some snow further, basically for the western half of the island. Overall, daytime highs tomorrow, 7 to 10 degrees for the western half. Eastern half, you're looking at temperatures a tad warmer, 11 to 14 degrees, with the winds a bit breezy in the morning. Labrador, you are looking at your temperatures towards the southeast, sitting between 5 and 7 degrees. And then as we head into Wednesday, more rain expected to move in. Temperatures are going to cool down a little bit, 0 to 2 or even 5 degrees. Up across Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures in the single digits. The long-range forecast, again, showing that rain sticking around relatively mild temperatures, 8 to 10 degrees for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. But the heaviest rain will be Wednesday into Thursday, it looks like at this point. For central Newfoundland, you are looking at your temperatures warming up as well Friday and Saturday. Same thing for western Newfoundland, around 11 degrees. For Labrador, your temperatures are going to bump up above 0. Even the risk of some freezing drizzle or freezing rain in the mix there as we head through into the beginning of the week, or the end of the week rather. Our weather photo of the day is the Northern Lights in Happy Valley Goose Bay. What a great shot this is. Thank you to Paul for that photo. We love to see the Northern Lights, and if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can do that by sending them to Facebook or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Just beautiful. Thanks so much, Ashley.
No problem.
You have 2 individuals buried in one grave. One is Newfoundlander and one is from another regiment. Well, if there's 2 individuals in that grave, we can't exhume that grave.
Well, the search for the unknown soldier brought experts here to the fields of France. Catch Heather Gillis's documentary Someone's Son at cbc.ca/nl. Well, tonight we're bringing you an encore presentation of Someone's Son, the repatriation of Newfoundland's unknown soldier. It's a century in the making, the careful search for one soldier to represent them all, and an emotional, long-awaited journey to finally bring him home from the fields of France. Heather Gillis takes it from here.
The Somme Valley in northern France. Lush, green, peaceful today. But bombs, blood, and trenches a century ago made these farmers' fields a muddy hellscape. This is where the Royal Newfoundland Regiment fought. This is where many died. Never to return home. But home is calling one of them back. This is Thomas Nangle, the regiment's padre, later rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel. Nangle was Newfoundland's Director of War Grave Registrations and Inquiries, the country's representative on the Imperial War Graves Commission. Nangle tracked burials of the regiment's dead. Nangle wanted a Newfoundlander repatriated, calling for an unknown soldier to be brought home from the brutal battlefields in the St. John's Daily Star in December 1920. Just like the unknown warrior entombed in Westminster Abbey in London on November 11th that same year. Nangle wanted to choose the grave himself, a secret to be known to him alone. But Nangle's dream never came to be.
It's amazing, really, when you think about it, the work.
Until this man picked up the torch 100 years later.
I was the one who requested the repatriation.
Frank Sullivan kick-started a chain of events that will complete Nangle's vision and the National War Memorial in St. John's in 2024.
His dream will be fulfilled on July 1st. It's amazing to me.
For Sullivan, a 40-year Navy veteran, repatriating an unknown soldier is personal. His great-uncle, Private Charles Canning, served with the Royal Newfoundland Regiment in the First World War. Killed in 1918, Canning has no known grave.
And I was in the military when Canada brought home the remains of an unknown soldier, and in the foyer of Parliament buildings while he lay in state. Back in the First World War, Newfoundland was his own dominion within the British Commonwealth. In 1993, Australia brought home an unknown soldier. In 2000, Canada did. In 2004, New Zealand did. And in 2015, South Africa did. So why not Newfoundland?
The soldier brought home from Vimy Ridge is Canadian, not a Newfoundlander. That planted a seed in Sullivan.
So basically, the unknown soldier in Ottawa, God love him, doesn't represent the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Just as the COVID-19 pandemic stopped much of the world, Sullivan started work to repatriate an unknown soldier to Newfoundland and Labrador. A big ask, considering Canada already had one.
Now, Frank had already applied to the Veterans Affairs and got turned down to have an unknown soldier brought back to Newfoundland.
With Berkeley Lawrence, soon to be the Royal Canadian Legion's president, behind him, Sullivan was determined. Meanwhile, the Legion was working on something else, refurbishing the National War Memorial for its centennial anniversary, asking the provincial government for help.
And when we went into the meeting, we said to Frank, you can't say anything until we get our money. We get the memorial approved. So he pitched the idea to the Premier and told the Premier, you're the man to get this, make it happen. If you write a letter to the Prime Minister and to the Minister of Veterans Affairs, who knows? And here we are.
It was a meeting fellow Legionnaire Gary Brown won't forget.
I remember the Premier listening to us and turning to one of his ministers and said, make it happen.
Still, repatriating the unknown soldier wasn't a done deal. The federal government, the provincial government, the Royal Canadian Legion needed to make a case to the organization that cares for the graves of 1.7 million soldiers in the world, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission.
They were well aware of what Newfoundland and Labrador wanted to accomplish and the reason behind it. A piece of unfinished business.
Unfinished business because Newfoundland was its own self-governing dominion of the British Empire in 1914, dragged into the First World War on August 4th, when Great Britain declared war on Germany. Newfoundland's governor, Sir Walter Davidson, promised to raise a regiment of 500 soldiers. They were known as the Blue Petits.
Out of eligible males between the ages of 17 and 35 during the First World War, 35% of Newfoundlanders volunteered and served. That's over a third of our population at that time. So it's just heart-wrenching how many we've lost.
It's that sacrifice and history of independence the Commonwealth War Graves Commission considered when finally granting the request for an unknown soldier to represent all those Newfoundlanders killed.
If you find anything in your field, in your backyard...
Bodies of 40 to 50 soldiers from the First and Second World War are discovered every year in France.
They have this kind of shape of headstone.
When that happens, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission here in Beaurain, France, gets the call. Craftsmen here create their headstones, aiming to give every soldier an equal burial, no matter differences in military rank or life circumstance. Soldiers from foreign lands aren't repatriated. Instead, buried closest to where they fell, in cemeteries that dot the French countryside, all along what was once the Western Front.
That means we are producing here all the headstones for all cemeteries in the world.
But only one headstone on this day in late May is grabbing attention. One that will mark the spot where the unknown soldier rested for more than 100 years. The original will go to the Rooms Provincial Museum in St. John's. This replacement gives a key detail about a man little will ever be known about. His exhumation date, May 13th, 2024. Before Newfoundland's unknown soldier could be selected, historian Melissa Davidson and her colleagues with the Department of Defense's Casualty Identification Program in Ottawa had to do their homework.
We really looked at everything from the large-scale movements of the regiment through France down to the movement of companies on the battlefield during particular actions, and even the particular individuals and where they might have ended up throughout the course of a day. So it was not only a large-scale search about the regiment itself, but also really about the men who made it up.
Normally, researchers like Davidson aim to name men killed in battle. But this time, the team is searching for a grave with a long list of candidates of who could be inside to help keep the unknown soldier's identity concealed. Sarah Lockyer spends a lot of time in cemeteries like these. She also works for the Department of National Defense and the military.
My job as Casualty Identification Coordinator is to try to identify any newly discovered skeletal remains that we think are possible Canadians who died during the First World War, the Second World War, and the conflict in Korea, so that we can identify them, bury them with their name, by their regiment, and in the presence of family.
Lockyer, a forensic archaeologist, did just that a few years back, gathering DNA that helped to identify this chap, 17-year-old Private John Lambert of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, killed in Belgium in 1917. But in the case of the unknown soldier, Lockyer is doing the opposite. No DNA samples, no pictures, no identifying the remains.
He's there to represent all Newfoundlanders. And if we know who he is, he does not represent everybody.
The pool of candidates was small, the selection process secretive. From the First World War, only about 820 men from this province, serving in all branches of the military, have no known grave. Lockyer says they had to tread carefully.
We really had to ensure that we chose a grave that had a high number of candidates of who it could be, thereby reducing the likelihood that this individual could be identified through historical or archival research.
The names of nearly 600 men from the Royal Newfoundland Regiment alone are listed on this center plaque underneath the caribou here at Beaumont Hamel. All of them have no known grave. Some of them are buried in plots with a marker that says that they are an unknown soldier from Newfoundland, but not all of them could be candidates to become the unknown soldier. There were factors ruling out even entire cemeteries.
And this actually applies to all the cemeteries here on the site of Beaumont Hamel, which we had to eliminate all three of those cemeteries very quickly from the beginning for practical reasons. So there's a couple of examples in this cemetery where you have two individuals buried in one grave. One is Newfoundlander and one is from another regiment. Well, if there's two individuals in that grave, we can't exhume that grave because the remains might be mixed together or anything like that. So those were immediately eliminated from contention. So we have two examples here of identified Newfoundland Regiment soldiers, but you'll notice at the top of the headstone it's inscribed, believed to be buried in this cemetery. So that means that these are special memorials. It means that these individuals are not buried right here, but they are buried elsewhere in the cemetery. They just don't know exactly where they are. So because these special memorials exist in this particular cemetery, by exhuming an unknown in this cemetery, we could be inadvertently exhuming somebody who has been identified.
In the end, only 6 graves in 3 separate cemeteries had potential to hold the unknown soldier, narrowing down the pool to about 139 missing men. And as the digging started, the team discovered a crucial clue.
So as we were exhuming the remains, we did find a Newfoundland shoulder title with the remains.
A shoulder title similar to this. This one right here was unearthed with Private Lambert in 2017, still intact after a century.
We found the human remains. There were small pieces of cloth from the uniform, but that tends to decompose rather quickly. So it's not uncommon to find pieces, but they're usually no bigger than something along those lines. His boots were there. We found his boots as well.
Surviving scraps placed in the soldier's casket to be interred along with him at the National War Memorial in St. John's on July 1st. Something that pleases Sullivan.
Because it's part of him. Everything that we're bringing home is part of him. And is he from St. Anthony? Is he from Bjorn? Is he from Calvert on the Southern Shore or Corner Brook? Nobody will know.
If there's one thing the military knows, it's drills. Step by step, the 6 selected to carry the unknown soldier carefully rehearse every motion. Day in, day out, in the week before the soldier was transferred back into the hands of his regiment.
Well, for me, this is probably going to be the most important event in my military career, and I am very, very honored to be a part of it.
You may only get half a day at the site.
Corporal Benjamin Roberts signed up 3 years ago for the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, proud to be chosen to carry the unknown soldier as a pallbearer, and following in the footsteps of family.
My great-grandfather, Corporal John Thomas Roberts, he was a part of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment in the First World War from 1917 to 1918. He joined right after the Battle of Monchy-le-Preux, where the regiment was decimated for a second time. So he was one of the people to replenish the 800 lost Newfoundlanders. He returned home with a wound to his left shoulder, a gunshot wound.
As a pallbearer, Roberts won't just carry the unknown soldier.
Well, I feel like I'm going to feel an immense amount of pride and also an immense amount of responsibility as I'm carrying this monumental casket which holds the unknown soldier.
Daniel Orich joined the regiment at 16, the same age as so many soldiers from 100 years ago. Orich will stand across from Roberts during the ceremony, linking arm in arm, supporting each other and the unknown soldier.
I was proud and honored to be put in the role. It's truly an honor as a Newfoundlander to be able to go out there and bring back a representation of all of the Newfoundlanders that weren't able to come back. To lay a soul to rest back here in Newfoundland, it's truly something to take at heart.
Right up into that area right there, okay?
In the classroom, it's the details, where to move and what will happen at Beaumont Hamel. For Orich and the bearer party, hours studying each part.
We all understand that this is a very serious job, very serious task, and we all want to go over, we all want to get this done. We all believe that this is very important.
For me, it's all about sacrifice. So I want to make sure that this member is laid to rest in their own soil so they can get the proper respect that they deserve.
It's a Wednesday morning in St. John's. After all the drills, all the planning, all the preparation, it's time to go to France. Leading the troop is Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Strong, the commanding officer of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip for everyone.
I'm immensely proud to say that I'm a part of this, beyond the capacity that I hold as the commanding officer, something beyond words, something that I could never explain, something that I could never adequately express, something that I could never have dreamed would have happened.
Just like the unknown soldier, Strong experienced combat, but in a different conflict, on a different continent, in a different time.
I deployed to Afghanistan almost immediately after 9/11. Went over in January of 2002.
It was there, after heavy fighting in the mountainous east, that Strong saved the life of another, after a chopper they were in lurched violently.
A couple of people ended up being thrown out of the helicopter, and we ended up airborne again. And there was an individual who ended up basically hanging off the edge of the ramp of the helicopter. So as we regained altitude, I moved out and grabbed onto one of the soldiers along with another soldier who was on my right. And then essentially we formed a human chain behind me.
For that, Strong was awarded a medal for bravery, something he proudly wears on his chest. But he's humble about his heroism.
We had a soldier that was in danger, and everybody just, again, we acted like we were trained and we acted as a team.
Not only is Strong the leader of the modern-day regiment, but he has deep ties to the regiment of the past.
So I have a great-grandfather, Lance Corporal Aaron Strong, regimental number 2642, who I learned in 2016 served in the regiment and was wounded at Montchelin-Preux on April 14th, 1917. It's a connection that before that time I wasn't aware of. I often wonder, would he have been proud of me to have said that I was his commanding officer? It's why I work so hard. It's why I really do everything I can, because I keep looking back and wondering, had we served at the same time, would he have been proud to have said that I was the commanding officer and I was his commanding officer?
And in a twist that might be fate, Strong's birthday and his father's is April 28th, the same date his great-grandfather enlisted in the regiment. Strong's great-grandfather, Lance Corporal Aaron Strong, survived the war, meaning there's no chance he could be the unknown soldier. Still, Strong can't help but feel a connection to the one being repatriated.
That one individual represents so much more than just himself. It's the chance for people to recognize that all Newfoundlanders, regardless of what branch of the military they were in, all of them played a part. All of them had a very important role to play. And just the fact that that one individual can represent them all, it's a very small token of our appreciation for what they did.
As loved our Father, so we loved. Where one say, stood we stand.
Standing at Beaumont Hamel on the morning of May 25th stood hundreds. The Ode to Newfoundland carries across the battlefield. The anthem to the unknown soldier's journey home.
Guard thee, God guard thee, Newfoundland.
For the men who made this happen, it's a day they've been dreaming about for years. The first steps of that journey start with the French military, carefully laying the soldier beneath the regiment's emblem, the caribou, perched on high, looking towards enemy lines, crying out over the battlefield for all the Newfoundland blood spilled here. Laying in a casket constructed with pieces of Newfoundland birch, the unknown soldier mere meters away from the plaque to the missing, where his name is likely embossed, as Padre Jeff Payne prayed over him.
We bring you home with honor and thankfulness, to the pine-clad hills, to the shortened days as the starlit night, and to the windswept land of Newfoundland and Labrador.
The unknown soldier wouldn't have recognized the Canadian flag dressing his casket, dying long before Confederation or Canada's adoption of the red maple leaf. Members of his regiment slowly lift him up, linking arm in arm for a long and winding procession to the hearse. Premier Andrew Furey, the soldier's ceremonial next of kin, represents his family, embracing his own son, Mark, who at 13 isn't much younger than some of those who fought here.
It was incredibly moving, historic, special, spiritual. To see the casket again and to be standing there with my son, realizing that somebody's son, our son, collectively is now coming home was incredibly emotional. I broke down several times. And
closing the door on the hearse, a sense of finality and a surge of emotion for Frank Sullivan.
You requested repatriation. What was it like to witness it?
I don't know. Words fail me right now. It's a moment that I'll die with. What do you say when we're bringing a son home?
A son who is now spending his final moments on French soil. His pallbearers with another slow and steady march. Placing his casket onto a lift, loading him into a Canadian government airplane. 100 years ago, he sailed to these shores. Today, he's flying home. Near Newfoundland, an escort. 2 CF-18 fighter jets who had a special message for the unknown soldier.
It is our honor and privilege to be part of this extremely important mission today. As you enter Canadian sovereign airspace and the airspace above Newfoundland and Labrador, we are here to stand guard, escorting the remains of a true Canadian hero that gave his life more than a century ago. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. We stand on guard for thee.
Meanwhile, back in St. John's, anticipation building for the unknown soldier's arrival. Hundreds hung outside the airport gates, watching, waiting. The soldier could be connected to any one of these people, and that's why they're here. Saturday evening, in the sky above St. John's, gray cloud and fog lifted, just in time for the unknown soldier's approach. Finally, he's home. Meanwhile, across town, at the home of the regiment, on the shores of Kitty Vitty Lake, where the unknown soldier trained 100 years ago, the regiment is readying for this moment. A long-awaited homecoming. For the last 100 years, this is where veterans, their families, and people across the province have stood to remember all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians killed in battle. This July 1st, they'll be standing here for the unknown soldier.